By George, I think I've got it.
Hybrothetical thinking.
I saw that Bigfoot walking across the screen and I thought to myself, wow, they are real.
I ask us all, is that really reasonable?
Hybrothetical thinking.
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
I'll show you a little of the evidence.
Hybrothetical thinking.
Researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine have pioneered a cancer vaccine that eliminated all traces of cancer in mice.
You could find evidence of that, my friends. You could change the world.
Hybrothetical Thinking, a podcast for the hypothetical thinker.
Greetings, travelers, and welcome to Hybrothetical Thinking, a semi-informative podcast that explores the journey from probability into Johnny's heart, revealing a strong, compassionate, loving man with a very strong soul.
I'm about to cry.
That at times might find a way out of his butthole. My name's Nick Floyd, and I'm joined by my very wonderful and one crying co-host.
Hey, y'all, I'm Taylor Nelson checking in from Atlanta today.
I'm Johnny Clark, and I definitely got emotional until you fucking said
I
the
made
word
full
butthole.
eye contact the whole time.
Man.
My eyes are actually tearing up right now.
I did break
I
eye
can
contact.
feel it.
You touched me. But sometimes you can make me cry. If you know how to touch me, that's not wrong. If you know how to get to my emotions.
There are multiple ways to touch Johnny to make him cry in multiple ways.
You just got to rim Johnny's emotions just enough before you penetrate him and he starts crying.
All right, Nick, how does the show work? Let's get to the show.
So the way this works is that either Taylor or myself will do the research for our weekly episodes, and Johnny's sweet, compassionate, loving, now crying Johnny McJohnster goes into every episode completely blind, very similar to a man who lost his glasses in the dark, meaning he has no idea what we're covering each week.
I think you used that same...
I probably did.
Okay, never mind.
Originality is dead. It's 2018.
That shit's overrated anyways, man.
Also, guys, be sure to subscribe to this podcast to make sure you get the episodes before anyone else hears them. That's right, you're going to get them at 12:05 a.m. Central Time when we release all of our episodes.
I mean, technically we hear it before they do, though. You know?
That's the truth. Taylor, how you doing today, bud?
Ah, man, I'm doing good, guys. It's sunny in Atlanta finally today. It's been raining every freaking day. Yeah, every freaking day it's been raining. Finally, it's cleared up. I get to walk around the yard tonight because I go on my walks every night, as you guys know.
Aww.
So I get to enjoy that. How you guys doing?
I'm doing super good. Done a whole bunch of Hybro stuff for our Instagrams and our Facebooks. Tons of cool stuff happening there. Yeah, I'm doing super great. It's been raining here as well, Taylor, but the difference is a lot of the rain, like the swells, like the red zone in radar, you guys know what I'm talking about, is all is hitting Georgia. Like, we're watching you get pelted down there. We're getting rain up here, but you're like hitting a monsoon. I'm doing good, though. Nick, how you doing?
You know what? I'm excited.
I'm excited.
A real boy.
We're recording this episode on September 28th, 2018, but when it goes live, it will be October.
Wait 1 second. Did you say September 28th? I'm sensing some synchronicity. This is episode 28, y'all.
Holy shit!
Guys, synchronicity is a new theme that we've latched onto, and ever since we discovered, we were talking about, it comes in a full circle. We think about this happens. We talk about this happens.
Gosh.
It's blowing my fucking mind.
It's been nonstop for a full week since we brought it up on last week's podcast. Guys, if you're feeling any sort of synchronicities while you're listening to this episode, if we mention something and you go, what? Message us on Facebook.
I'm breaking up. Tunnel. I can't hear you.
That's wild.
Dude, before this podcast, we literally spent about 5 minutes talking about synchronicities that have happened in just today's time alone between the three of us, let alone episode 28, September 28. Nick, you're 27, right?
I'm 27.
Oh, we're so close. Anyways, all
know.
right. Back to life.
If there's a third 28 that comes up in your research or in my news today, I don't know what I'm going to do.
All right, I'm trying to do some math in my head right now to be like,
So
okay, what day is it now?
2018.
How could I add these days together to come up with the number 28?
2018 could be skewed as like the number 28.
I'm looking.
That is a good point.
I'm pre-reading my news today and seeing if the math adds up to 28.
how many numbers per characters in the words? How many sentences are there? How many lines are there? How many vowels in the first line are there? How many? We can find 28.
All right, I think I might have found 28.
Okay.
No, I might. It's a stretch, but you got to bear with me. So I'll do the math when I get there. But
All right.
Okay.
All
right. Here we go. I'm gonna dive into today's news because that was a great segue into it. So we have a lot of crazy news on this podcast, but this is probably one of the craziest. This is some of the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. And I use the word shit for a reason, and it's gonna make sense. The future of gastrointestinal. I'm gonna start that over.
Gastrointestinal.
The future. Fuck. The future of gastro. I'm glad I'm not hosting this episode today. The future of gastrointestinal medicine could be something most people would find pretty awful.
Talking about farts, fart medicine.
Gastrointestinal. I'm talking about poops. I'm talking about farts.
Poops, farts. Okay.
So a new study in the United European Gastroenterology Journal, that's the United European Gastroenterology Journal, suggests that drinking one's own blood may help doctors detect inflammatory bowel disease, including Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, in a less invasive manner than endoscopy.
Endoendoscopy?
And this study is called the Vampire Study.
They drink their own blood?
Yeah, the vampire study asks. Okay, this is important. So remember these numbers. the vampire study asked 12 women and 4 men in Zurich, Switzerland, to ingest their own blood on 2 occasions.
Oh shit! That's 18. Never mind.
Taylor, that's 14. You dumbass.
No, it's 12 plus 4 plus 2.
Oh, I thought you said 12 and 12.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry,
guys. I got too excited as well. I was
my
ready for that to be real.
Just
the numbers are there. Just bear with me.
Fuck, man.
So the vampire study asked 12 women and 4 men in Zurich, Switzerland, to ingest their own blood on 2 occasions, 1 month apart. It seems that drinking blood increases the levels of a protein called calprotectin or procitine, whatever. I'm not a doctor.
Constantine?
Sure. That is found in feces. Researchers at the Center of Gastroenterology and Hepatology in Zurich believe the presence of the protein could be a marker for intestinal bleeding. Most of the participants drank their own blood. A few ingested it via a nasogastric tube that it sent straight into their stomachs. It wasn't pleasant for many, and Live Science says about half the participants suffered painful nausea, and about 30% suffered diarrhea or constipation after ingestion. So let's talk about that for a second. But I want to say 30 and 12. Let's look at that number for a second. 3 minus 1
We got
is
18
2.
again.
Well, no. 3 minus 1 is 2. 30 minus 2, 28.
Shit, all right.
I told you, it's a stretch.
It's real.
We can get there. I think I talked about this on a different podcast, a different episode, but like almost like 98% of your, or not 98%, but the reason why poop is brown is because like a large percent, like 80% of your poop is like blood cells. It's dead blood cells. Dead blood cells are brown. So I would believe that your body can't digest it because whatever comes out of you, right? That color is all dead blood cells, and therefore your body is like throwing it to waste. So
Well, I wonder why red blood cells are brown.
They die? I mean, like everything, I guess, turns brown when it's dead. Like trees rot and they like go brown. I feel like pine cones and leaves turn brown when they die. Like grass turns brown when it dies. All living things.
Could you like this? Just sounds. This sounds like some futuristic shit, though. Like
you're drinking your blood.
We go to the doctor.
Vampires are back in like medieval times.
Yeah. Now, does this blood have? It could be any blood. It doesn't have to be.
It has to be
blood from
their blood.
From the
Kendrick,
butt,
his blood
from
Kendrick.
the anus.
Oh,
I think it has to be your own blood.
Okay,
but Taylor's saying what part of your body?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be out of your butt. I guess.
No. It could be any blood.
Like
from
good.
Yeah. I just like you imagine all these like organic health doctors and stuff, and you come in and they're just like, all right, so we got the CBD oils, we got the vitamins, we got the essential oils, and now to test your bowel for disease, we're gonna have you drink your own blood. And then there becomes this like mass epidemic of like people finding a thirst for their own blood, and it ends up like making them like turns them into like basically it's like vampire, like turns them into vampires.
So
basically.
Here's a little weird fact about me.
Johnny likes drinking blood.
I like drinking blood. No, so when I was a kid, I on accident, I cut my arm open, and I was told it's whatever, suck the blood out, whatever. I don't fucking know. It was a snake bite, but I was like, I don't want to die, so suck the blood out, and I was like, that tasted fucking rad. Like I like the taste of iron, and so I have a feeling if I was to be any mythical creature, it'd be a fucking vampire. I also had an oral fixation. I used to bite I'd have bite my pencils and anything that I was fiddling with. Yeah. So I feel like I definitely am a candidate for vampire life.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, when I was a kid, if I had a scrape or something on my arm, I would always just go ahead and suck that blood up constantly. Not because I loved the way it tasted. I didn't mind the way it tasted.
Yeah, me either.
Not because I loved it, but just because I didn't want to get blood on everything.
Yeah.
And I guess saliva, I don't know. Is there any science to how saliva clots it up? Because it seems to work. Seems to stop it from bleeding.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But Johnny's got all the makeups to be a vampire. I mean, if he's into it and has the oral fixation, he's a handsome man. Therefore, he fits right into that universe.
Multiple people have told me that I was a vampire.
You would run into one serious issue as a vampire, though. You would never be able to fix your hair. You would never be able to see yourself in a mirror.
Oh, would you do it?
Yep.
Really? You'd be a vampire?
100,000. Yeah, I've thought about this shit.
You couldn't go out during the day.
Yeah.
You couldn't see yourself in the mirror.
So here's my mentality, right? So my whole preface of me fixing my hair is because I can see myself. If I can't see myself, man, fuck my hair, right? I don't give a shit. Also, living forever, hella rad.
Well, you see the problems with vampires, though, is that in their old age, they found the love of their life how many fucking times? And then that person had to die, or they're conflicted with, okay, I either make you a vampire or I don't, and you die, and I'm by myself again. Ooh. And then I have to go through this process of just being alone all the time.
Yeah, but shit sounds so like I want to experience that shit,
I'm on board with you too. I would definitely do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Dude, as soon as I peak, maybe I already peaked, but as soon as I peak, I'm gonna regret not turning a vampire.
Johnny peaked in high school.
Yeah, I fucking peaked in high school, dude.
Welcome to real life.
Yeah.
I just I couldn't believe that news though. When I read it, I was just like,
so what does this mean?
This is crazy.
What's the point?
What does it all mean, Basil?
I mean, I don't think it's going to leave that study, but an endoscopy is pretty invasive. So if drinking one's own blood can do that, I have a feeling there's another way to test this protein or whatever without having you drink your own
blood. Can't they specify that protein and find it somewhere organically?
You'd think.
Do only human blood, and every type of blood, creates that protein?
Maybe it's just the mixture of stuff that's in there with it. It's well, these two things have to be together or it's going to react differently or whatever.
Weird.
Well,
how much blood do they drink?
I don't know.
Because it's different. If it's I feel like if it's, a little droplet in your arm versus a cup full of it, I could not drink a cup full of blood. I would not like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan. That would not be enjoyable for me.
Unless I do it if I had to.
One of those ceremonial bloodletting from a cow or whatever, and then everyone in the circle drinks a fucking big old cup of the blood that's straight from the cow's neck. Would you do that?
No.
I don't know if they drink a big cup. I think they all drink from the same cup, just a big old swig.
I would do a ritual or what's it called? Not sacrifice, but a thing with a tribe or some kind of religion to experience it. But I don't know if blood or sacrificial things I could get a part of. Dude, I freaking saved 2 mice lives today.
Meese.
Because I didn't want them getting in traps. I'm a pacifist.
He doesn't want them getting entrapped.
Yeah, entrapment.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Sean Connery.
Lasers and such.
Sean Connery.
Lasers.
Butt lasers. Laser butt. Dude, that is the only shot I think of 2 shots right now. One of them is just how cool the castle looks that they're in. And the second one is just a sweet butt evading lasers.
Oh my God. What about the lake shot?
The leg shot?
The lake. Not leg. When she's doing the lap in the lake and he's there chilling and watching her do her laps.
I don't remember that part.
I'm looking up to see if there's anything related to the number 28.
Okay, listeners, I swear to God, we're not trying to make judgments on the number 28, or not number 28, synchronicity. We're not trying to jump to conclusions like Illuminati confirmed shit. It just keeps happening and it is too coincidental. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in Bigfoot. You can believe that I don't want this shit to happen. I don't want to believe in whatever. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So when I write my notes for these episodes, I numbered my pages, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yeah.
I took all the pages, I added those numbers up. It came out to 30.
I got so excited.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
close.
mine too. Well, I guess I have 28 episodes
close.
on here. It makes sense. All right.
This podcast is also sponsored by Future Monsters, a premier apparel store with pop culture and horror focus. Each product is handmade with quality materials, so not only does it look good, but it feels so good. No mass-produced cheap garbage here, with designs inspired by King Kong, the Wolfman, and much more. These shirts are a must for every occasion, whether it be nightclubbing, metal shows, weddings, and of course, our favorite, podcasting. Head over to futuremonsters.com and enter the code HYBRO, that's a capital HYBRO, at checkout to save 10% on your next purchase. We know we'll be doing that as soon as possible.
All right. Taylor, I think we're up. Taylor, it's you.
Okay, well, time to dive into this episode. And the way I'm going to start it off is just by clarifying some fun facts that we talked about last week. Things that we wondered about. They were like, I don't know, maybe we'll research it one day. Well, I decided, fuck it. We'll go ahead and get these straight right now. Okay.
Oh, damn.
So, and I don't know, it possibly roundabout way, it could be an abstract way to connect this to the overall arc of the episode, but I fucking doubt it. So I'm starting with Temperate Zone motherfucking 7, y'all. I was pretty bold in my statement last week when I said Temperate Zone 7 exists, you motherfuckers, and Atlanta is in it, Georgia's in it, and this is what it is, okay? I was somewhat right, and I'm going to explain my case. So there are two temperate zones, and they are the two zones between the torrid zone, which is the tropical belt, and the northern and southern frigid zones. Apparently, my confusion comes from planting guides that refer to different hardiness zones.
Hardiness?
As temperate zones. Yeah. So these there's hardiness zones that tell you what kind of, what time of year you should plant stuff based on how cold and how hot it gets in that area.
Okay.
So that's the hardiness zone. But these planting guides, so I used to work at Pike's Nursery as the aquatic life champion or whatever the fuck it was. So I had to deal with a lot of plants. And they had hardiness zones or temperate zones on the plant cards, that would tell you where it's native to, what best zones it suits.
Yeah.
And Atlanta is, in fact, in temperate zone motherfucking 7, which I guess the correct way to say it is hardiness zone, but these planting guides said temperate zone 7, so I'm standing by my fucking comment, y'all.
Okay, well, if we're going back and rehashing things that we got wrong or right,
let's do that.
I want to sit here and say, I'm sorry, listeners. You can have a mythical creature be your state animal because Scotland's national animal is a unicorn.
Which is weird because... Is Loch Ness, is that in Ireland or Scotland? I thought it was in Scotland.
Yeah, but I think they all believe Loch Ness is like a conspiracy.
Yeah, unicorn's the real deal.
Oh, that's bull, dog. I mean, I'm not ruling out the possibility that unicorns existed at one time, but I mean, Loch Ness is still on the table right now.
That's true.
Sure right.
So yeah, I did say, I think in 2 episodes ago that Mary, North Carolina's animal was Bigfoot, and I discredited that. It's valid. You can have a mythical creature because Scotland's is... Well, maybe not. Maybe I can take that back. Maybe Scotland's also, full of shit. I don't know.
I was going to say we're going to take away your crown of the king of non-believers, but I guess you retain the crown.
I retracted it. I said no. I go back. Scotland's also on my shit list. Bye.
I feel like if we just do a whole episode of saying all the things that we got incorrect...
Wrong.
Because
a 20-hour episode.
It would be a long episode, but because we have a single 1-star review on iTunes.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the one person being like, man, these guys could not be more wrong about everything.
For real, dog.
Somebody
for real?
said
I have not seen this.
Somebody said they referenced us on a paper. I think it was Jess or something. And I feel like our podcast is going from what's the term? From
credible to
no. It was
slightly less
semi-informative to non-informative.
Oh, yeah, no, we've been non-informative for quite a while.
I'm going to stand firm, and I want to know who this fuckface is, and I want to know their reasoning. What are they saying that we're doing wrong? I want to know.
Probably you just called him fuckface. That's probably the problem.
Now he was a 5-star
Well, I
review.
stand by that comment as well until they can prove me that they're not a fuckface. So, number 2, do what?
Listeners at home, please counteract that 1-star review and give us as many 5 stars as you can so Taylor would never ask me as fuckface and get in a fight. That's all I'll say.
Gosh.
Ah, ridiculous. 1 star? God. Well, what the fuck ever. So the second point that I want to clarify is about the redwoods. So redwood trees, they actually predate birds, flowers, dinosaurs, and of course, modern humans.
Really?
Yeah, they began their reign about 240 million years ago.
Their reign, as if they're like an invasive species that conquers all species in a way.
Well, they're beasts. But to put it in perspective, dinosaurs, I guess, evolved to what we call dinosaurs about 230 million years ago. Flowers, oddly enough, about 130 million years ago, even though there has been fossils of pollen found that could be as old as 240 million years. It would make sense to me that flowers probably exist at the same time as all these other plants, but that's not what they say. They say 130 million years. Birds...
Wait. There weren't flowers back when dinosaurs were around?
Yeah. I guess that's what they're saying here, yeah.
That doesn't make any damn sense. How are there no flowers? What? Wait, what?
In Jurassic Park, they say the terra firma doesn't grow since the Cretaceous period.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about plants. We're talking about flowering plants.
I don't. But still, like, I don't know botany. Let's put that out there. I don't know a lot of things. I don't know a lot of science things, but I don't know botany at all. I know you can grow poop potatoes on Mars, but in the Jurassic period, I know for a fact that a lot of the animals were not carnivorous, they were herbivores and omnivores, and they ate a lot of fucking greens, and there's no way with all the maybe I'm just wrong and blatantly speaking on my ass, but there's no way that they had all these greens to eat, and none of them flowered. That's like...
I don't find that hard to believe. I mean, that's like saying all these dinosaurs existed, but dogs didn't exist.
I don't know, man. There's like...
Aren't flowers, like, mostly poisonous to herbivores, so therefore maybe they didn't grow due to evolution.
That's something that I don't know about.
Evolutionary thing.
I don't know about the poisonous part, but what I would imagine is, flowers are ornate. It's pretty. It's got a purpose. Its purpose seems to be to attract bugs, like to attract bees and shit like that. That's why it's pretty, I guess. Like all these other animals that are pretty. It would take a long time to evolve into this weird variation, of all these bright colors, these random patterns, random shapes, different numbers of petals. I don't know. I agree with you. That does seem crazy, but this is what the research shows. So I don't know. If this person with 1 star can disprove that, I'll get on board. So birds came around about 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs died off, right? As dinosaurs evolve into birds, those are the only things that were left.
And crocs, right?
Crocodilios, yeah. Or alligators.
Not the shoe brand.
So there are 3 main types of redwoods. You got the coastal redwood, which everybody knows about, the Sequoia sempervirens.
Oh, yeah.
They're now restricted to the Northern California coast, all up and down, all up the West Coast.
What?
What?
I said, what?
Yeah, they were
tree.
once worldwide. The second type is the Sequoiadendron gigantea, and that is restricted to one single strip in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And then there's the Metasequoia, or the Dawn redwood, which is only located in one remote valley in China. Now, one of the common misconceptions, and the thing that we were really wondering about last week, is like, why the fuck don't these things grow everywhere else?
Oh, yeah.
Well, redwoods can actually grow anywhere. And people even grow them here in the southeastern United States.
Get out.
Yeah, that's what I fucking said. But they can't reach their full size without these special conditions found in these certain places.
So,
namely being the constant temperature between 50 and 60 degrees, and more importantly, consistent heavy fogs.
So what you're saying is that you can grow them, but in order for them to actually reach maturity or really like go full steroid and get huge like redwoods do, they have to have a ton of moisture in the air.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the maturity part, but the size for sure.
I guess
it would just look like a normal tree or something around here with just a different color bark and
The maturity thing I was kind of just calling the size, but yeah, I'm wrong about that. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And I guess one of the needs for this heavy fog is because redwoods actually pull in the majority of their nutrients through the needles that are at the top of the canopy to supplement the roots. And these fogs, while they aid in that, they also snub out competing trees that can't survive constant dampness.
Oh.
Other trees would mold and stuff.
What's your topic about?
I don't even know. Like I said, it's probably not related much to this at all. Yeah, the topic is not related to this much at all. I just wanted to talk about this. Hey, I don't think our topic's going to be very long today, so I just wanted to have some fun. And just get back. People are trying to say that we're wrong, and I don't want to be wrong, So
I'm wrong all the time.
I live my life wrong.
In the wrong lane.
So one of the weird things about redwoods also is that it will continue to grow after being uprooted. And in fact, most redwoods that we see are actually clones that are grown from fallen trees. About 80% of them are clones.
Really?
And,
so like one falls and then another one grows in that place?
Right, yeah. It grows from a branch or a clipping or the stump that's left behind.
Oh.
Yeah, so about 80% of the ones that we see are from clones. And if you take that into account, 2,000 years old is like the oldest sequoia that we talk about. But if you take into account the fact that they're mainly clones, that age could be upwards of 30,000 years if you're talking about its genealogy. It's, clone of the same tree.
Wasn't the General Sherman tree the oldest sequoia?
I think the General Sherman is something to do with its width, like its diameter or circumference or whatever.
I saw that shit when I was a kid. That thing,
Johnny's a world traveler.
It's a fucking amazing tree.
That thing is, you walk up to it and you're like, that is like 5 cars.
Where's that at?
It's in Northern California. The Sequoia National Forest.
I've never been.
It's close to the Yosemite.
Kings Canyon, I think, or something like that.
You take Pacific Coast Highway all the way up through Big Sur. You pass
all the way up there.
Huntington Beach, past Venice Beach. You go all the way up there, and on your right, you have to go. You basically have to travel with chains on your car because the cops will pull you over on the super steep incline if you don't have them.
Yeah.
Like we got pulled over like 5 times. It's like myself and my brothers, and they're like, "Are you guys doing anything suspicious?" Like we just don't have chains, sir. We're fine. It's 4-wheel drive. So we have surfboards in our car. Like, no, we're not dangerous.
You're like, there's no waves
kids.
up in these mountains, boy.
We rode fucking snow. We took the fins off and just went down the hill. This video
Where are these things breaking at, man?
In the trees, man.
All right, so that's enough fun facts about fucking redwoods. But we're gonna go ahead and clear the air about bonsai trees. They're exactly what I fucking said they were last week. You can bonsai almost any tree as long as it is a perennial woody tree or shrub that produces branches, and it's mainly just about clipping them. Most people will confuse bonsaiing with dwarfing, which is a selective practice of choosing genetic miniatures and just genetically choosing miniatures, selective breeding. So bonsai is literally you take a fucking seed, you plant it, it's got to be a shallow pot, you clip it in the perfect way over 20, 40 years, and it becomes a mature tree, just a tiny little size.
So you're telling me that if there's bonsai trees on Mount Blanca, that means someone's tending to these trees to make them that way?
Oh shit!
Did you just open this up?
That is what common sense would show. Yes.
Get out of here.
That's weird.
Yeah, if there is a bonsai tree, that is strictly the art of pruning it.
So someone literally would have to climb up Mount Blanca to where these bonsai trees are. Bonsai said tree enough for it to actually continue to regrow.
To bonsai.
And plant said tree to bonsai said tree.
When I was a kid, the word bonsai was what you said when you wanted to improve.
Bonsai!
Bonsai! That's literally what you use to improve a sentence.
That's what Mr. Miyagi says when he's drunk thinking about his wife.
That's also what the aliens and Men in Black say.
No, it's not.
All right, so the last little bit of fun facts that we got today is about the Joshua trees. This one's still pretty elusive. It's crazy. The oldest one is said to be about 1,000 years old. The name Joshua tree was given by the Mormons who were traveling through the area because it resembled a biblical story of Joshua and some fire. I don't know the story. I don't give 2 shits, but that's what it was. It's actually said that by the end of this current century, Joshua Tree National Park could lose up to 90% of its population due to climate change. And while climate change has always been happening, plants typically can migrate via animal poop and shit like that, right?
What? Wait, can you repeat that? What about pooping and migration?
So, yeah, the way plants migrate is that it gets in animals' poop, right? An animal eats this plant, eats the seed. The poop is pooped somewhere else. Oftentimes, where they poop is like, well, this is not a suitable area for this plant to grow. It doesn't grow. Other times, this is a really suitable place for this plant to grow, and it grows and proliferates. Okay,
so they're hoping that the fastest animals eat them. Yeah.
Yeah, we need cheetahs to be eating Joshua trees. So apparently, the Shasta ground sloth went extinct about 13,000 years ago, and since then, the migration of these plants has pretty much stopped, and they're kind of stuck where they're at. And on top of that, they need extremely strict conditions no matter where they're at to bloom. So they don't even bloom every year, apparently. And they rely on one single type of yucca moth to pollinate it. So it's like, I guess, rare to bloom, even more rare to get pollinated. So that kind of, it hurts its cause. But while I was looking into the Joshua Tree, I ran across this cool story about Joshua Tree National Park. In 1973, Graham Parsons I think he was the guitarist of the Byrds. I'm not quite sure. He was the songwriter of the Byrds. He was in the band the Byrds. He died of an overdose at the age of 26. He and a few friends promised each other that when they die, their ashes are to be spread at Joshua Tree National Park. Yeah. So Parsons died, and oddly enough, he died in Joshua Tree at room number 8 at the Joshua Tree Inn. The friends that he made this pact with was his road manager, Phil Kaufman, and his assistant, Michael Martin. So after he died, Parsons' body was on its way to be flown to his family in New Orleans, okay? These two guys, Phil Kaufman and Michael Martin, either one of them owned a hearse or they stole a hearse. I think one of them owned the hearse. So they acquire a hearse, they drive it to LAX, they're dressed as mortuary workers, they convince the airline to release the body to them because they're the hearse guys. They essentially steal the fucking body, they drive several hours up to Joshua Tree, get wasted, and then light the casket on fire. Neighboring campers and people in the area call the cops because there's a random fire being burned. The cops easily catch these guys because they're wasted. They gather up the body, but apparently at least 30 pounds or so of body remains or ashes were left at the park. So, job well done. They completed. They fulfilled the promise that they had promised Mr. Parsons. But then they were accused of grand theft, obviously. They were fined for the burning, and they had to pay for the funeral. So the body was then flown to New Orleans, where the family could bury it.
Dang.
But, it's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah. But the info I found said they were accused of grand theft, they were fined for burning, and then had to pay for the funeral. So I don't know if there were any charges against them, other than, hey, you can't be burning random fires in a national park. And then they had to pay for the funeral. So I don't know. Not that bad, I guess. Kind of a crazy fucking story, though.
That's wild.
Wow.
So you ask, how the fuck does this relate to today's episode? And
today's episode's all about trees.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if it has anything to do with it other than how crazy nature is. I just wanted to clear up the facts, clear the air from last week. And these things, we're talking about how beautiful and crazy our world is and how nature is. So I'm going to go ahead and say that is the connecting fabric in today's episode. And it is up to you to connect it. Okay?
Tay, I'm so fucking lost right now. You've curbed me probably 4 or 5 times.
This is the craziest, lengthiest misdirection of any episode so far, and I love it.
Way back when, all you guys had to say was a story about a cat and a girl named Sabrina, and I was like, I'm onto it. Or like, face off. I'm onto it.
Basically, you're like, hey, here's a bunch of corrections and facts about trees, and now here's a topic that has nothing to do with any of those
Joke's on you!
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So here we go. Let's dive in. On September 16th, 1994, the Ariel Primary School in Zimbabwe, 200 plus young kids were outside playing during their morning recess. Sometime during this morning break, 64 of those children claimed to have experienced something supernatural. Now, most of these kids described first seeing a flash of light from the corner of their eye before then witnessing a small, silver, saucer-like craft appear lowering through the trees just at the boundary of the schoolyard.
Another fucking alien?
That's what it seems to be.
Oh, shit.
So some of these kids have described that it landed, Some say that it just hovered inches above the ground. But all of the descriptions of the craft are strikingly similar. They say it was a round silver saucer with a fairly flat brim, and around this craft was a series of lights that were oscillating in color. The kids also describe a loud ringing sound that one of them likens to the sound of a flute. So the 60-plus kids gather near the edge of the playground and stare in awe at what is taking place right before their eyes. Upon nearing the ground, several beings appear in close proximity to the craft and the kids. The exact description of these beings vary slightly, but that is to be expected when trying to extract some truths from like a bundle of elementary school children, you know. But overwhelmingly, these beings were described as typical gray aliens. They were said to be about the same size as these kids, with pale gray skin, large ass heads, and massive black bug-like eyes. One of them was said to have very long, straight black hair. And a funny comment that one of the kids made about it is that it looked like a hippie.
The alien look at hippie with like shades on, looking like John Lennon.
Right. It's like, who is this guy, man?
Dude, check this doobie.
Some of the kids, oddly though, said they described the skin as black. They kept referring to these aliens as black. Oh yeah, they were black skinned or whatever. And some say they couldn't even see a face at all, but rather a blurry area where the face was.
What?
So yeah.
Was?
Or where the face would be. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So some of the descriptions I read and I listened to described 3 aliens. Some of them described 2 aliens. So I'm going to describe this as possibly 3. So while at least 1, but maybe 2 of these beings were said to have approached the group, one stayed on the flat brim of the craft and was running back and forth from side to side of the craft with no explanation, and just continued to do so the entire time.
Distraction!
Right.
Distraction!
Over here.
That sounds like me. That's something I would do.
Look at me, people!
But the ones that approached the group of kids were said to have hovered just above the ground while still executing a walking-like strut.
Like, like this is the way a human was. Like the way if Mark Zuckerberg was an alien, this is the way a human moves.
Dude, oddly enough, that's kind of how some of these kids describes it. It's said that one of these continued to imitate movements of one or more of the kids while the other just stared blankly into the crowd.
Sounds like the end of Annihilation with Natalie Portman.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Annihilation. We went to see it together. We had a date. We had a date.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah, so oddly enough, it was like one of these beings was seemingly imitating movements that the kids were making. Apparently, right before these kids saw the craft, they were playing like a hopscotch typey game where they're skipping around, jumping.
Wait, the aliens are the kids?
The kids were doing this.
Okay.
So apparently just like as they're approaching, one of the aliens is doing something very similar to what the kids were doing.
Hopscotch?
Hopscotch type movements.
I imagine the conversation,
the
conversation before they get off the ship. It's like, Randy, Doyle, and Sergeant Pepper. And Sergeant Pepper's like, all right, Randy, Doyle, listen up, guys, okay? We got to be cool, all right? We don't know where we landed. We just got to be cool. Randy, you get up top. Doyle, you follow my lead. And then Randy's up top running around like a fool. Doyle starts playing hopscotch, and Sergeant Pepper's feeling like an embarrassed asshole because all these kids are looking at him being like, man, I don't know what the fuck these things are, but we have more common sense and intelligence than that fucker up there making laps on nothing. This guy thinking he's playing hopscotch, and this one long-haired fucker who's just staring at us figuring out what to do next.
Well, I'm not going to lie. As long as we've known Doyle, I think that is something that he would do. He would interact with us. Doyle's a people person. He's a people guy.
Synchronicity. Okay.
This is synchronicity.
Here's what happened. So first off, you viewers, listeners at home,
just say
I fucking blew up Doyle today.
Yes.
So okay, Doyle.
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. So Doyle stands at about 4.5 feet, maybe 4 feet.
Doyle is an alien, an inflatable alien we brought to Orlando.
It's like our mascot.
He's our mascot.
We take him everywhere, and I blew up. I spent all day today. I was editing, and I had him like the back of his head. I was blowing him up with my mouth. I was just blowing him up all day, editing away. Just
yeah. I mean, he spent a while.
and I blew him up. And then Taylor, you're fucking bringing up Doyle again.
Dude, synchronicity.
He's right there.
He's literally right behind me staring at me.
I can't believe you blew that shit up. Dude, when me and Nick were trying to blow it up, it was not going anywhere. We had to use a little machine to do it.
Oh, I
use a pump.
blew the whole thing up by myself.
Johnny's got the swimmer's lungs. He's got those Michael Phelps lungs.
I used to play trombone. I was a swimmer. Yes, I have great. I can hold my breath for 3.5 minutes.
I don't know how long I can hold my breath.
Seconds.
Let's find out right now.
But I am a championship toker who I'm a championship bong guy, and I'll take anybody on. Okay, Roar sponsor me.
I don't think it's how hard you can breathe in. I think it's how long you can hold your breath.
That's good. That's a good
how
point.
Big your lungs can expand.
That's a good point.
Also, I can do this thing, boys, called circular breathe. If you didn't know about that,
it's good for singing, isn't it?
I only did it with saxophone. I don't know if I could sing and do it.
Oh, okay.
I can't sing, period. Anyways, so you're telling me these aliens are doing hopscotch imitating these humans. So no matter what they were doing, like they could have come down to like some like trailer back boys like mudding thing, and you're telling me these alien ships would have been mudding with their spaceship?
But after several moments, these beings float or hopscotch back to the ship, and they zip on off. The whole group of kids, they run up to the schoolhouse to explain what the fuck just happened. Okay? Now,
how do you describe that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess exactly how it happened. Exactly how I just described it to you, sir. But, when I read about this story, my mind, automatically, built a scene of, kind of what I expected this place to look like. And I pictured a group of, obviously African kids who probably had no way to connect this experience with, sci-fi television or movies.
Sure.
Right.
I pictured a schoolhouse to be, the basic hut. Something pretty basic. I literally pictured the movie The Air Up There, starring Kevin Bacon. That's what I thought that the area was, and the people.
And what
would
year?
Be like.
What year was this?
This is 1994.
Okay.
In Zimbabwe. I don't have the actual city, I guess, but it's in Zimbabwe. But this was not the case at all. It seemed to be a fairly put together place, probably on par with the elementary schools that we went to here in the States. The population of the kids seemed to be pretty split between kids of African descent and kids born in Europe, all of which seemed to be pretty educated and well-spoken for their ages.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of eye-opening. I don't want to use the word ignorant, but yeah, I guess that's what that is. We just I just automatically pictured that these were African tribe-type people who were out in the bush, whatever, not necessarily a put-together place. And it kind of aided in my understanding of the place at first, because I thought, oh, that makes it more credible because these kids have no connection to sci-fi movies and shit like that, so they're describing literally what they saw, right?
Yeah.
And they're not connecting it to some past experience or something they've seen on TV before.
Yeah.
Right.
But and oddly enough, a lot of the research that I was doing at first described these kids as having no possible basis or knowledge of UFOs, and the idea of aliens doesn't even exist in Zimbabwe.
So
in Zimbabwean culture.
That's a very Zimbabwean. That's a very interesting concept. So the concept of aliens and what an alien looks like for people in America or people in Europe, I'd say, is very understood. We understand what an alien would look like through movies, through comic books and graphics and that kind of stuff. We're drip-fed images that show us what an alien is. But if there's somebody out there that has zero connection to first world or people that have that ability to see aliens and they still describe it as the same thing, that shit is wild.
Yeah,
right. Go ahead.
We talked about that early in the podcast where I think I was saying, I think aliens and stuff. Just imagine a world without our perception influenced by television and film and stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine that it makes the experiences more credible when you hear them described by a culture who's maybe not familiar with the aliens in film and television.
Right.
Because, I think District 9 obviously was a movie made by a South African filmmaker in Johannesburg.
Sure.
So, obviously that, but the perception of aliens in there, they weren't little green men or gray men. They were, insects essentially.
Yeah.
They were giant shrimp people.
Yeah, but there's so many, but my belief is that what I'm saying is that the term is when you think of alien, like an alien.
Yeah.
Just
I
like
think there's
not from where I am, I guess.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say there's a one very similar little green man that comes to mind. Not like Doyle. Jinx, you owe me a soda.
Yeah.
But not like a xenomorph, not like the roach people, not like the guys from Arrival. Like,
Yeah.
there's a similar, and so I'm saying is that, like, if there were alien occurrences in places that didn't have influences through entertainment, this is the same thing. No, I agree with you that, like, there are other types of aliens, and those are in different movies that don't have influence, but, like, I think it blows me away that these kids fucking saw what I have seen and been portrayed by.
Yeah, like the
Right.
typical gray alien. It's so weird that is the description that comes up a lot. You know, sometimes people describe it as very human, but
Right.
the overwhelming majority is this what you would call gray alien, and that's why we can just say the words gray alien and you immediately picture it. You know what I mean?
So besides Randy running back and forth up top like an idiot, did the other two, I mean, were they just standing there besides imitation?
Yeah, the one was kind of, well, this is also, some of the information I found said that there were only 2 aliens. Some of them said that there was 1 on the ship and then 2 approached the kids. So we have to kind of, I don't know, pick what we want to believe. But from what I understand, yeah, 1 was on the ship just going back and forth like an idiot. Another one was kind of being like an imitator. And the other one just stone cold staring at this group of kids. Just stone cold. So what I found weird about this is there are interviews with these kids, and in the interviews they actually use the fucking words UFO and aliens in their descriptions. So I was immediately like, what? That don't make no sense. They obviously know what that shit is, right?
Yeah, they shouldn't know what that is either.
Right. But what we were talking about a second ago with the alien thing, like, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast. I feel like we have. But the Dogons, there's a tribe called the Dogons, and I don't remember exactly where they are, but I think this was during the Vietnam War, where this Dogon tribe is a remote island, and during that time, it was, I think during Vietnam War, we were having to take supplies to the area, and we needed locations, right, to set up shop. So in these islands, U.S. would bring basically rations, equipment, things for these people in exchange to, like, hey, let us use your area for a little bit. And they would bring this tribe all kinds of sweet shit, right? And food and stuff that they didn't have. And after the war was over, they left, everything was gone. And when you go and visit these Dogons, they now worship what they just think is what you would call a plane. And they make these straw fucking replica planes, worshiping them, thinking that these planes or whatever was their god or whatever, or this alien, or if you can think of it that way, that was bringing them all these goods. So they had no perception of what it could have been, and they kind of make up their own belief system based off of it afterwards.
I think that's, I mean, I keep bringing up movies, but that's in Star Trek Wrath of Khan, the new Star Trek that came out, like, not new, like 4 years ago, with Benedict Cumberbatch. There was a group of aliens, that had never known of other intelligence, and they saw the Enterprise, and they created that as their god, right? Because they didn't understand it, and it was like a flying disc, and I think people do that. I think it is a common practice that when you don't understand something and it's put in front of you as a higher, not higher power, but as like a more intelligence, it's got to be your religion. It becomes your religion. Like it makes you question everything.
All right, that's a good point. It makes you question everything, dude, on a spiritual level. But so, you know, we were talking a second ago, where did these descriptions come from? You know, from these kids, because there are videos online that you can actually check out that happened right there in 1994, like the week it happened. So immediately following the incident, the kids were interviewed by a guy named Tim Leach of the BBC in Zimbabwe, and also tons of other news outlets. And I guess since we mentioned news outlets here, it's probably a good time to mention that the previous week, there were literally thousands of sightings and group sightings of UFOs, flying orbs, weird things in the skies of Zimbabwe. And it was broadcast all over the fucking news. And it was like a big deal, like a week prior to this happening.
So that would make sense.
So that would make sense in 2 different ways. Like, okay, so they're around, and that makes sense. We saw them in the sky the previous week, and they show up here. Another way to think of it is like, okay, that could be a potential spot that the kids were exposed to the thought of aliens, the thought of UFOs.
You know, kids, they fucking make up shit all the time.
Make up shit all the time. And that is what's weird about this. It's like, yeah, a couple kids can make shit up, but what their teachers and their headmaster, since they all speak, European English.
Headmaster.
Yeah, the headmaster was like, came to the conclusion that there's no way that 60 plus kids could all agree on anything, let alone have their stories so similar, their descriptions of the being and the way everything happened so similar, that's pretty rare, I guess. So he came to the conclusion that okay, I'm not saying that there are aliens. He's very careful about not saying that what they saw was any certain thing, but he's just like, there's no way to deny
it's weird
that these people, they saw something for sure, So one of the most credible pieces of this piece of pie is when Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack joined the party. He's actually the most notable name to get involved with the initial interview process. So just after the sighting, he traveled to Zimbabwe and individually interviewed the witnesses and came to the conclusion that these kids did indeed see something, and they all seemed to describe the same things in the same way. The interviews, like I said, were videotaped. You can find snippets of them online if you want to get a sense of these kids' reactions and kind of get a sense of these kids, who they are. They seem like competent little kids, so they don't,
sure.
It's not weird. But Dr. Mack's main track of study was the exploration of how one's perceptions of the world affects their relationships, and he was certified in child and adult psychoanalysis. 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 There we go.
That's the word.
And in the early 90s, he started compiling alien encounters and abduction experiences with the presumption that he could shine some light on whatever mental illness was causing these hallucinations, as he was saying. But not long into this process, he noted that there was no consistent signs of mental troubles, and that the people he interviewed overwhelmingly showed a heightened sense of spirituality and a concern for the environment. So this is where the synchronicities start to show their face. The immediate impact that the encounter had on these Zimbabwean children varied quite a bit. One child's arm fell off, while another grew what resembled a tail.
Wait, what?
No, I'm just joking about that part.
I was gonna say, you can't just drop info like that and just walk away from it.
You're saying randomly after this occurrence, they all just start giving a shit about the environment?
No, not necessarily. But but what I am saying is that they were infected. They were affected in various ways. Some of the kids were very frightened. Some enjoyed it, were excited. They thought it was the coolest thing ever, and they want to do it again. But some kids reported something that we've actually heard before, which is what you guys are talking about. Some of the kids say that while this gray alien that was staring so deeply into the group actually projected images into their mind and was communicating with them telepathically. And the images that they were projecting into these young people's minds was that of world destruction, trees dying, the environment suffering, and it seemed to be brought about by people's own doing. Now, so what these children took from it, like a handful of them, is exactly what you said a second ago. These children started to fucking care about the environment. They were imparted with some kind of knowledge or some worry that oh my God, something's going to happen. We need to do something. And these are young kids who are in Zimbabwe who probably have, again, I'm assuming, that they have little to no knowledge about the environmental dangers that are going on in the rest of the world. But, I think back to when I was 8 years old, and I'm pretty much the same age as these kids. Think back to when I was 8. No, that's the exact opposite. I think of 1990 and the mid-90s was every single day in class you heard about pollution, things need to change in the environment, you need to recycle. Literally everything involved with school had something to do with recycling. It was definitely on the agenda, right? Everything was about climate change, which, whatever, could be real, could be whatever. But the main thing was people needed to start taking care of the environment. So, maybe these kids were exposed to those same campaigns. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. But what it made me think back to was when I heard, when I read this, that they were being projected potential doom on the environment, I immediately thought of the Denver airport episode and some of the paintings that we talked about.
Oh shit! With the kids and the guy in the gas mask.
Yeah, and one of the main points that we were making was like, hey, okay, something's going to happen. Possibly these paintings are some weird warning about, impending doom on the planet, some crazy natural disaster that's going to happen, or possibly brought on by a man-made disaster. And then it's up to these kids in this painting to figure out how to carry on, And it's like, seems to be kind of similar to this. And then it also made me think of like a brief thing that we talked about last week. And I couldn't really find the info on it. But when we were talking about Dr. Stephen Greer, didn't you say, Nick, that he talked about some kind of a weird telepathic thing that he had that involved the environment? Or was it just telepathic stuff talking about those shafts?
He had multiple telepathic experiences. He wrote a whole book about it, Dr. Stephen Greer. And you can get the book now and read it. And it's basically just like it breaks down certain events. And there are several accounts where he was communicating about the environment telepathically with these aliens.
It's like a weird theme,
Yeah.
It's a really weird theme. Like, we should all care about the environment, point blank. But how weird is it that prominent sightings, prominent encounters are imparting onto individuals the need to care more about the environment?
But then again, let's just take a second and assume that that's an agenda. Okay, so
yes, I agree.
Okay, so here's my thought process. If I could fake a claim, and say that I was told by a higher power or higher intelligence of a situation that bettered my cause, that would be all the cause and that I'd need to further my agenda.
100%. And that makes sense with Dr. Stephen Greer. Like we said last week, I think maybe I bashed him a little bit hard where I didn't mean to. I was really just bashing that stupid fucking documentary that he came out with. So
that's why he didn't come on the podcast. He emailed me back.
Yeah.
He emailed me back.
He was like, he's that one star that we got?
Did he actually email you back?
Yeah, he emailed me back.
What did he say?
He's like, I can't come on your podcast. You guys don't believe in me or support me.
What?
Yeah, it was a weird situation.
Well, that's a nut punch.
No, it wasn't. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god!
But we did get an email back from Anna Kramer saying that Dr. Greer's rarely available on short notice. His CE5 group has had amazing experiences on and near Blanca Peak. You may want to get contact Countdown to Transformation as some are related there from our store. Go to www.
Oh, I see. So exactly as I highlighted in the Sirius documentary, while they were, luring everybody in with this alien info, they quickly switch it to climate change and all this other stuff related to, climate, which is exactly what you just said, Johnny. Like, it's obviously somebody's agenda. It's an obvious agenda, but
yeah,
you hear these little kids say it. I don't know. That makes you think that, wow, weird. Did this kid actually say it, or were they saying stuff and it was then twisted and contorted by the interviewer or whatever to say these dumb things? And I will say this.
Say it.
So, yeah, there is actually a documentary being made, and apparently it's almost finished being made.
I was just about to ask, hey, Taylor, in your research, did you see about this documentary?
he just blasted that over to my mind from Spring Hill to Atlanta.
How the fuck is that happening so much?
So this documentary is called Ariel Phenomenon, and you can find it on arielphenomenon.com, and it's basically...
I'm on it right now.
Dude, it looks like it's fucking cool, and another little piece of synchronicity is going to pop in here with it. It's set, I believe, to release later this year, but I think they're trying to raise money to figure out how exactly it's going to be released. If you look at some of the credits, some major players there are credited with being involved, so it looks like it's going to be pretty fucking legit. And if you watch the trailer for it, it features somebody that we were having a little conversation about the other day off the air, but it features Dan Aykroyd in the trailer talking about how important this is and how it could be shining light on new ideas. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So it could potentially be a really cool documentary. And one thing that they do is they catch up with all these kids. So they're now 30, 32, 33, and they re-interview these kids, these adults now. And I did see some snippets online which was from one of the girls who's probably one of the main subjects in this documentary. She's fairly good looking. And this is the only clips I could find online. It only featured her. So she's probably one of the more outspoken people on it. She did say some things in the clips that I saw that I didn't see anywhere in the older footage, which is kind of like fishy to me. But she said one statement that during the projection, she was one of the children that had these images projected into her mind. She said she brought up, not use the word screen memory like we talked about last week, but she did say that during these projections, the face that she saw on the alien, this gray alien that was staring hardcore at the group, kind of morphed into what she says was a lion. So I don't know. That's possibly another variation of the screen memory that we talked about with the owls, where they try and project something that's more comforting. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it sounds kind of crazy.
Lion.
A lion, yeah. Pretty comforting.
So
but they are in Zimbabwe, so, you know.
Maybe.
Right.
There may be a little lions.
But like, obviously the lion wasn't going to harm her, so maybe it basically cloaked itself in her mind, so no one else saw it as a lion. Only she saw it as a lion.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's how the screen memory would work, unless it's a collective, like, you know, thing where they're, you know, obviously they're telepathically communing with multiple people at the same time. I say obviously, but apparently they were. So, I don't know. That was kind of weird, but I don't know, man. I want to see this documentary and see what happens with it. But
I feel like if there was a projection of an animal, I feel like, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like there's a lot of animals I'd be more scared of than an alien. Honestly,
I don't care what fucking animal it is. If I'm seeing an alien body in front of me and any kind of face pops onto that shit, it is no more comforting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even thinking like, what's the movie Contact, where spoiler alert, fucking the alien projects himself or itself as fucking Jodie Foster's dad.
Yeah.
Like, lamest shit on the planet. Like, be more creative, you know? Be the alien. Just be the fucking alien. That's what we want to see. I don't care how goofy you look or if it's gross or something. But one thing that Dr. Mack talked about is that, so his overall stance on his investigations actually broadened to include the possibility that reality could be more than what Western culture is currently giving credit to, and that alien encounters could possibly be essentially multidimensional or something that's not physically in the real world, but can still interact with us, you know, like multidimensional, you know, alternate reality type thing. And it kind of bends into that area of hallucinations and, you know, these hallucinatory drugs. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, A, they could come to us and we don't have to take a drug to perceive it. Or B, we take these drugs and we open up whatever is needed to then see everything there without them wanting us to. I don't know.
That's my problem.
That's the way to look at it.
We had that conversation last week about taking drugs and different hallucinogens and hallucinatory medicine and herbs or whatever to unlock a part of your brain to see these things. And I think that's a whole lot of hula, you know? Like, I don't believe at the point you ingest something to have an experience, everything you have is in your mind, I think.
I see what you're saying, and I don't, even when you're saying it that way, I don't think that maybe that's correct. Even if it is still in your mind, like, it would have to exist in whatever we're calling your mind consciousness, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, if it's happening, it's consciously happening to you, it could be still happening and not be in this 3D physical world that we're in. You know, it's another dimension, and that's the whole description of it.
But that's the thing, is that how can a ingestible or drink, whatever, a device give me the ability to see a different plane?
Well, you have to consume shit. You have to consume food, nutrients just to survive. I mean, if that was the idea of, like, we shouldn't have to put anything in our body to experience anything, you know what I mean? Like, then we wouldn't even be able to live.
But experiencing something, a feeling, is way different than experiencing a different dimension.
But
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Think about it, though. Like, think about getting blackout drunk.
Never been.
Well, you understand the concept of it.
You're right.
So think about that. Like, that's a whole different plane of thought. Like, that changes everything. When you take medication at like a doctor's office.
Yeah, I've had that.
Your body requires it. There are some things, like I get, I'm all about holistic approaches and shit like that, but like there are things you need. Like, I'm a big fan of the CBDs. That is a prime example of, like, for people with anxiety or with a form of disability or anything like that. You ingest this CBD, this flower, and it assists in helping that part of your mind.
Yeah.
So like the thing that you're arguing against is something that we do every day.
Right.
I think it could aid you, but I think I draw the line at aid you to a different plane.
Are you more clear-headed when you're starving and you haven't eaten in 3 days? Or are you more clear-headed when you
eat?
Yeah.
But that's the difference, is that have you ever seen the movie? I think it's Real Genius, or it might be Real Genius. It might be
Val Kilmer?
No, it might be Real Genius. It might be
Baby Geniuses too.
Stop. Manhattan Project. I'm not sure. It's one of those two.
Oh, yeah.
And the kid is with his mom and on a date with a guy, and he asks if he wants a drink, and the kid goes, "No, I don't like when my opinion is impaired, or my whatever is impaired."
Right.
And I agree, Nick. When I take supplements and I feed myself,
puts you on a different plane.
It puts me on a plane that's better. But to alter it, like just something that changes that mentality and makes you looser or see things that aren't with the, I don't know.
Well, they may not be in this physical plane, but there are things that exist that you cannot physically see. Like, that. Like, there are like different types of light.
But I can prove it sober.
But think about, like, it's the concept of, like, children being able to see ghosts. A lot of people just credit them because they're children with imaginations. But because they have an imagination, their mind is open enough to transport them to another plane, to see another plane, the spiritual plane that exists on our planets, like on our everyday plane. There's a plane within that.
Malaysian 370?
Not airplane.
Okay.
Like, yeah. And they, the whole theory from a spiritual, like, ghost perspective, from a psychic perspective, is that children can see, basically they have like a sixth sense.
That goes away when you get older.
Because your imagination goes away.
But then again, I would say, yeah, kids can see things and hear shit that we can't hear as adults, but I would also argue the fact that kids have vivid imaginations.
Yeah, and imagination itself, like the imaginary world that they created in their own mind. Why is that not another dimension? Why is that not another plane of existence?
Well, if
an idea is still real, but yeah, we can call it an idea though.
We got to separate fabrication and a real,
But who's to say it's fabricated?
And who's to say they're separate? They're separate.
Well, so yeah, I guess I I can make right now a plane in a different dimension
well,
right
it's
now.
Not about
right,
like creating,
you can imagine
like,
something in your mind, and it does exist, and it exists right there in your mind. You're imagining it. What about that voice that's inside your head all the time? Like,
If that's what we're classifying it as, then every single hallucinogen makes you see a different dimension. But that's not how I'd classify it.
Hey, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what I think a dimension is. I really don't even know. It's anything. In my opinion, another dimension is anything that's not up. It's not north. It's not on the X, Y, or Z axis. So if it's not on the X, Y, or Z axis, it's another dimension. It's on another plane. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just not one of those three. So it's on a different plane. It's on a different dimension.
Well, man-made dimensions exist. We can create a third and fourth dimension.
Every simulation that we make, every little world, SimCity, Vice City, those are all a plane of existence, right?
Yeah.
Wait.
Something exists in that world.
What do you mean we created them?
Well, dimensions we can create, like three-dimensional, four-dimensional. We create dimensions within our own dimension.
We were put into this.
Yes.
We were put here, and we discovered what we call the area around us in an XYZ formation to be considered three-dimensional and fourth-dimensional on from there. We created the word for that terminology, but we didn't fabricate what that is. We just called it something.
Yeah.
We can't make a new dimension. We just discovered, we can't make gravity.
But
we
in
just
our
call
mind, when you're watching a 3D movie, that was created on a single plane, like
visually,
a flat screen, and those things are existing.
Yeah,
like that's a new plane existing in front of you.
So I would say so Newton discovered gravity, and we can also make artificial gravity.
Well, he didn't discover gravity existed.
He discovered it.
Oh, he proved it.
I think he discovered it.
Well, I mean,
either way, I think
humans discovered gravity.
How is it different? Anyway, so Newton put a word to it, right? But when we can prove it, his hypothesis went to a theory, and now we can create artificial gravity. So, like, I think we can create. We have 3D, but we can create artificial 3D on a movie. So what I'm saying is that we can't create different planes. We can just experiment with those planes that we're given, and maybe one day we can change different planes and go to different dimensions.
Well, we can with virtual reality.
I don't think so. I think that's all virtual. Yeah, because you can artificial gravity, virtual.
Yeah, it's virtual though. So unlike those things that you described, which still exist in this 3D world with physics that still apply to this 3D world. Yeah, if you talk about a video game, simulation, virtual reality, the mechanics of the machine are still operating in this world, but you can create all different kinds of physics laws within that engine, right? Like in the real 3D engine or whatever, you can make all these different laws. You have to assign the laws to act like our 3D world, right? To where something has weight or something falls down or something bumps into something and it has to move, right? You assign something a weight, so it bumps into something and it moves it more, right? But we could just as easily assign different rules to that environment, and it doesn't replicate our 3D world. And that's a good example of that world that we just created is it's a dimension, right? It's an imaginary idea, I think, that I would say that is another dimension.
I think we're using different words, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
But either way, in 1994, Dr. Mack was the first tenured professor at Harvard University to have his studies investigated by an official committee on the grounds that he could be misinforming and being irresponsible to the scientific community. But the committee, however, found that his studies were legit and he could continue as a Harvard professor. But I believe he has been tainted. Found some information that's really kind of described it as this, like that he was questioned by Harvard and then they cleared it up. But I found some other stuff that was like he was questioned by Harvard and shunned for life. And he's a crackpot because he believes these things are possibly multidimensional and they're possibly real encounters that people are having that could be more than this 3D world. And he brings up things like Native American traditions and pretty much traditions that go throughout every religion and starting from the beginning of man or the beginning of writing that talk about, spiritual experiences, supernatural experiences. Every group of people describes these experiences. Why are we so quick to count them off as imaginary where it could still exist, just not in this physical world?
That pisses me off. That's the problem. It's like you have a guy who's a Harvard professor who has visited Zimbabwe, a school in Zimbabwe, because something occurred and something happened. And he did the proper investigations. He wasn't quick to say crazy shit. He did the proper investigations, brought it back. Someone called him a crackpot because he investigated it and said, this is worth investigating. This makes life interesting.
Someone's trying to shut
We
him
should
up.
talk about it. And then he gets cleared, and yet people still think he's a crackpot because he's trying to make sense of something. That's the fucking problem.
Why are you trying to hide him?
Why? Just let it happen.
He went into this study thinking he was going to expose mental illness, and he found just the opposite. So it's like, I don't know. It just sucks. It just shines light on the idea that if you're a legit scientist, which we're legit scientists, we're obviously not scientists, so you guys can say we're idiots all you want, but we're talking about information that legit people are putting out there in the realm. We're not making shit up. We're talking about information that we're finding that people with degrees, PhDs, master degrees, and shit like that, Pulitzer Prizes, they're putting this information out, and then we're reading it, and we're giving it to you guys. So this information is out there by credible sources.
Yes. I can't wrap my head around the idea that people just turn a blind eye to people like, what do you think doctors and scientists, like, what do you think they're doing? They're trying new things. They're trying to connect the dots. Like, no one's making up stories about Native Americans and, ayahuasca retreats and all the shit that happened and the spirituality beneath that. No one's dismissing that. Like, it happened. It's a part of history. And yet, when it's brought up or tied or connected, even at the slightest, to aliens or interdimensional life, they're shut down and they're crazy. That's like, it's bullshit.
Well, I think it's because it's hard to give anything credit that you can't physically see with your own eyes, or physically believe based on something physical that you can sense with our five senses or whatever.
You have to be able to test, experiment, and prove something in order for people to actually believe it.
Yeah, but I can't see all my organs in my body.
But people can prove you have them.
Right, but people can prove that aliens exist.
You don't have to see, and that's where I think we differ. You don't have to see your organs to know they exist.
There are people who literally will bring hard. I mean, this is a perfect example. This
hard evidence. I don't know.
This Ariel School, like, there are multiple. There were 60
there are 64 kids. Yeah, I think 64 kids who said they experienced this,
and it was all the same story.
Yeah.
Granted, some stories differed.
It was right after they saw a thing on the news about aliens.
It was. But still, that's 60 plus kids making up a very similar story and just agreeing that we're all going to make the story and then stick with it for 30 years.
Yeah,
30 years.
20-something years, yeah.
It's pretty crazy, but I think I would say that's different, though, than knowing your organs, because, like, Right,
it was a bad example, but I'm just saying, like,
I don't know. I would not say it's any different. Like, okay, a cadaver has 2 lungs. You know that. You can cut it open. You can look at it.
But how do I know I have 2 lungs?
How do you know that you have 2 fucking lungs? I'm sure there are all these different ways where someone can be like, okay, well, yeah, breathe in this air. We breathe this weird thing in. It's going to make your lungs a certain color. We can see it on this weird X-ray. That's an imaginary thing that I just thought up. I don't know if that's real, but that's an example of something a test that maybe someone would try and do to prove it to you.
Well, if
but you're still having to have the faith in that what they're telling you is indeed fact.
This is crazy.
Right. If someone does a full body scan and they go, okay, well, see, there's your heart, there's your liver, there's your lungs,
intestines.
Great. You could still argue that and say, that's a computer, that's a machine.
Cut me open now.
You could say that, and then sure, they could cut you open, but, like, that's the same theory with, like,
but how
everyone's thing is, okay, well, if an alien's real, cut one open, let's see if it's real. It's the same philosophy.
Yeah, still, this takes me back to an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Mac is trying to explain the existence of God.
Talking about that.
I was just talking about It's Always Sunny.
Well, Mac is trying to explain the existence of God, and it all comes down to having some amount of faith, and it's the same on both sides. It doesn't matter if you believe in the science part or the spiritual part or whatever. It all comes down to having a slight amount of faith that what you're seeing or what people are telling you, the information that you're gathering is correct. Even when you find quote-unquote proof based on tested theories and tested hypotheses, that becomes a theory and then becomes a law. Like, it's a law because enough people accept it. It's been proven, quote-unquote, proven enough times, and enough people accept it as, okay, that's the way it is. We should all just accept that and move on so we can build upon it. But that doesn't mean that it is actually true. That just means that in order to move forward and operate, we have to accept it. We have to accept something as true.
Well, with the world we live in, honestly, and this is just something that I'm just putting out there that I just thought up now. With the world that we live in now, I truly believe that people are so quick to reject things that don't make sense to them that if you were to if Johnny had 0 feeling in one of his fingers and we removed the finger in front of him and he felt no pain, he would be convinced to say, you didn't cut my finger off. I didn't feel anything. It's not gone.
If I didn't see it.
No, if you saw it, like if you watched your finger cut off but you didn't feel it, you would convince yourself that your finger's not cut off. Even though you see it, you're like, I didn't feel it.
I think there would be that period of time where you're questioning, is it really gone? Because I didn't feel it. I didn't hear it get cut off or whatever. I didn't use all my senses to track that shit's gone. I think you'd still deduct, my finger is not there. But if you don't feel it, you would seriously question it, I bet.
Wait. Hypothetically, I go under. The doctor puts me under. Say, hey, I'm going to take out one of your pancreases or one of your...
That's a totally different thing. Like the
Really?
moment you go under, that changes everything. I'm talking like you're awake, someone walks up to you and says, I'm going to remove one of your fingers. And you're like, no, you're fucking not. And you look, and you didn't feel anything. You didn't hear anything. There's no blood, nothing. Your finger just comes right off.
Okay.
You, like, sure, you'd question it, but then you'd be like, it didn't happen. There's no way.
But I'm looking at my
It's not
fucking hand. It's
possible.
not there.
Yeah, you're looking at your hand and you're using sight to be like, there's no fucking way. It's not there.
One
You
of
got
my
set off.
senses
But then
says
you're
it's
using
gone.
another sense and you're like, but I didn't feel it. What the fuck? And
Well,
but
but-
I'm sure you would deduct, yeah, my finger is fucking gone. But there would be that moment where you're like, what the fuck's going on? I didn't feel it, but I'm not seeing it. At least you would be questioning it at that point.
And this is how you're
But is what you
proving-
were saying, huh?
This is how you're proving that aliens are.
No, I'm just trying to prove basically like how our society rejects everything.
Rejects things
Like,
that are hard to
literally
comprehend
everything. Yeah.
because you can't see it or whatever. You know, like you can't. It might not be perceivable with our five senses. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But what we're talking about is the importance of proving to yourself via your senses that something exists.
Right. And I mean, you know what? At the end of the day, like, I'm not disappointed that that's the way that things are because the power of illusion and magic would not exist if we weren't a curious race. Like, if we were not a curious people,
Totally.
it wouldn't exist. And the thing about magic that makes it fascinating is it's something that people can tell themselves and convince themselves it's not real because it doesn't make them question their own faith or their own existence. They can go see a magic show and leave and be like, that was fun. And that's it. Like,
Yeah, and they tell
that's
themselves that
literally
it was sleight of hand because of all the different rules around us that we've all agreed on. That this is the way this world works physically. So what he just did couldn't have happened without it being some cool sleight of hand trick. So we
Then
accept
again-
that.
But then again, way back when, people thought that it wasn't sleight of hand. We now know that is. But back then, people actually believed that it was real, like magic. and dark
Rightfully
arts.
so. Rightfully so.
right. But that, like,
But they could
people
live.
convince themselves it's fake. Like, that's what we do as a people. Like, from the beginning, you know, like, because I'm a film guy, like, I go back to the first film that was ever shown in the theater, which is the train coming at the
Yeah,
screen and
people thought they
everyone
were,
moving. People convinced themselves that was as though it wasn't real. Like,
they
it
weren't
wasn't a real
used
train.
to-
They weren't used to it because it was new to them. So they convinced themselves it wasn't real. Therefore, film took off because it was a fake thing. Magic.
The suspension of disbelief was born.
Yes. Magic scared the shit out of people because they thought it was the work of the devil. They thought it was the dark arts. Then
Until they could.
they
discover that it was
convinced
okay.
themselves it was illusion. It was fake. It didn't exist.
So
it's an ongoing,
So the
consistent
aliens-
thing that people will say aliens don't exist. No matter if Roswell happened, no matter if the school in Zimbabwe happened, no matter if crop circles happened, people will say that thing doesn't exist. I'm convinced of it. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, think
Because
of all
if
the
it
different
exists-
types of electricity that people have discovered that, while they could see electrical storms, they could see lightning, and they could experience static electricity, like there's still parts of electricity that they can't see that they then discover and are accepted as truths and facts, because they seem to exist around us, right? But
yeah.
they weren't always just things that were obvious to people. Hey, yo, hi, bros. Time to take a break to caffeinate. While you're listening to a podcast as unpredictable as ours, you need a coffee that's going to keep you on your toes. That's why I reach for the strongest coffee on the planet, Death Wish Coffee. Available ground or whole bean. Hell, you can even get them in K-Cups. Available at deathwishcoffee.com. That's deathwishcoffee.com.
It's just like
That's why they
it
get
never
discovered.
reaches a point. Like when we talk about the Malaysian flight, we talk about exorcisms, we talk about all these things. Like it never reaches a point where people go, all right, and on CNN today, on today's news, the Malaysian flight disappears. Is it aliens? Is it interdimensional? Blah 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 blah. Like instead of addressing that form of discussion to basically like, give out all the options, like this could have been plane failure. It could have been a terrorist attack. It could have been this. It also could have been ba 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 ba.
Yeah. So
They will not. That's all discredited. All you're going to focus on is, hey, here's things that don't make sense, but we won't talk about things like aliens and shit because it's going to freak people out because they're going to be like, if it was.
Yeah.
I lose faith in everything.
I guess there was a point in time, I guess in the 50s, or around near the Roswell incident, whatever that was, 40s or something.
Roswell!
Where it was reported in the news. It's like, oh shit, we think this is a UFO or whatever. It crashed as an alien. And they reported all over the fucking news because it's unprecedented, right? Never happened before. There's never been any hey, shut the fuck up when you're talking about aliens. You can't report this kind of shit. It's out there. Not only is it out there, but we're the government and we're going to fucking snub you if you keep talking about this shit. And you guys know, in your heart of hearts, as deep as it goes, that, the media is controlled by something. We don't know who it's controlled by, but it's obvious. You watch every single news outlet, it all leans in one direction. The media is definitely controlled by something, an overwhelming idea or a system of powers. Who knows what the fuck it is? But it's not presenting truth all the time. It's presenting agendas. So if the agenda is shut these people up, don't let them think about fucking aliens for whatever fucking reason, I don't know why. I don't know. Like you said, people have agendas. Maybe it's an agenda. I don't know where I was going with that, to tell you the truth, but I like hearing myself talk.
I like that.
It's all about protecting the people, and it's about the right amount of censorship. I'd be curious to look through the archives from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, whenever, and look at sort of when something really taboo broke. And I feel like maybe Roswell, I want to do the research, but I think maybe Roswell was a big point when people were like flipping out. And I don't know the amount that people were flipping out from the Roswell reports because they were world news. I mean, it was world news when it happened.
I think they must have been flipping the fuck out because you see, like when I'm thinking 1950s, and like culture, I'm thinking everything is related to science. Everything looks like a futuristic thing. Everything is omatic this, omatic that. Everything is talking about futuristic scientific advances. All this sci-fi shit starts popping out. That's what fucking McFly was interested in. I don't know. It just seems to fit the times, maybe because it was inspired by something like that.
Right, and that was like the peak, the top tier is that, alien movies, sci-fi movies scared people. Like Aliens freaked people out. World of Worlds terrified people. Like that was a terrifying thing. And then there was a shift, and alien movies became blockbusters. They became commercial entities that we now consider B movies that were silly and fun, and everyone could go and be like, this is a fun time. There was a shift somewhere that the reality behind alien life scared people so much, and that the people behind media and news, everything shifted. And I think it was a conversation of censorship in order to protect the integrity and the sanity of society. And it's never changed.
Okay.
That's my could be web. I need to do the research, but I'm curious to see sort of when the first reported alien sighting, UFO sighting was, how public it was, and how people truly responded if it was a point of like distress for the government.
Well, I think it's going to be hard to figure out because there would have to be a point where people started interpreting it as that, where a lot of people in the ancient alien community, if you watch the show, that's their whole stance, is that these things that we're calling encounters and abductions have been going on since the beginning of man, and they were just labeled as spiritual interactions, like interactions with your God or whatever, So I think there's going to be a weird gray area. There would have to be a point in time where it shifts from, okay, we're not talking about spirituality and our God now or our religion. We're now talking about an entity that is sci-fi in nature. Sci-fi, I guess that's not the right word, but like it's an alien from another planet rather than from another plane of existence or whatever.
I think we need to get an alien expert on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think we need someone that's going to take us to school, and I would love to be able to just say like, hey, when was this first alien sight? And an expert on the cast just being like, hey, yeah, it was this and blah, 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 and this happened. And I feel like there is a really interesting conversation that's there because this is now our second alien episode in a row, and we're getting close to episode 30.
It's going to be a lot more alien episodes, I bet. Think about this. So if that whole environmental thing, it's like, okay, kids, we're going to say that you were implanted with these thoughts of environmental destruction, okay? We're going to say that. And then in 30 years, we're going to come back. Hopefully you're all still alive. And we're going to reevaluate the situation. We're going to interview you again. You're going to fortify those thoughts, what you said, and we're going to make this a real big environmental push. Like Johnny said earlier, an agenda. Well, I guess a rebuttal would be, why would they organize something over such a long period of time, and how that's crazy. But we know of movies, like what's that movie that tracked the growth of that boy for so fucking long? And then when we bring up the Paul is dead theory, a major theory of the Paul is dead is that it was a masterminded marketing ploy by the Beatles, and it carried on now. It's carried on now for how many fucking years? So I don't know. I think it could be an agenda thing.
Why have we pushed up a table that maybe these kids were brainwashed? Maybe like they were like made to say these
brainwashed
things.
in Zimbabwe.
I mean, I agree though. It has to be possible.
That would be the place I'd go. Somewhere
in 1994. What do they brainwash with?
I'm not
Kool-Aid.
FBI. Yeah, probably. I'm not fucking FBI or like fucking Sector 7.
Yeah, but like, okay, let's hypothetical this then. Let's hybrothetical this.
Okay.
If, hypothetically speaking, if they were brainwashed, how?
I don't know. I'm not. Sector
yeah,
7.
but hypothetically speaking,
they hook them up to some kind of device and force them.
64 of them.
I don't know. I mean, okay, the thing that would be like weird about it is that there are teachers that are like, yeah, this whole group of school children ran up to us and said this story, right? That's kind of crazy because those teachers would then have to be in on it. Or an event would have had to have happened. An event would have actually had to happen that caused these children to think they saw something. Otherwise, let's say that's not in play. Let's say these kids don't collectively have to see anything and they don't have to run up as a group and say, we all saw this. What if it was just the interview process and the interviewer can contort all these words in whatever way he wants? I mean, dude, watch the videos of these kids being interviewed. Part of you is like, okay, this is a master interviewer who is potentially manipulating kids into saying stuff. You know, these are kids. And you've talked to a fucking kid before. You can make a kid say shit that it does not mean.
Yeah.
They're
malleable, yeah.
Are you? Oh, you full? You want any more? You want some? You say that when you're done feeding them, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm full." You know, when you are ready to feed them, you say, "Are you hungry? Aren't you? You're hungry?" And they're like, "Yeah, I am." Yeah, they don't have any fucking clue what they are.
For 30 years, though, and the kids, these
money.
But how much money are they making off this tiny ass documentary?
Get me 15 grand. I don't think it's a tiny ass documentary, actually. I think it's like pretty legit. They got Dan Aykroyd talking about it. I'm sure he's invested.
Well, they're currently seeking $95,000 for post-production.
I mean, that's pretty legit then.
Donating on the website? If they were legit, they'd have a company pumping it into it.
Possibly so, but I guess Harvard's not donating. But, well, apparently there is a John Mack Foundation, I think that's a big part of it. And from what I understand, people were donating to his foundation pretty heavily, so maybe the money's there. And if you look at the team, the list of the team, the credits are pretty hefty. So I don't know. It seems legit to me.
I just think, like, at what cost do you go back and interview these 30-year-old people, and you say, all right, we'll give you, $500, and you got to talk about your story again.
Yeah, it was probably way more than $500.
Yeah, well, to them that might be a lot of money though.
Yeah, but
well, okay, so yeah, perception thing. You know, these aren't tribal people. These are normal fucking people. You know,
okay.
Yeah, they're like people in their kitchens, like they have homes and children and all that stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. With today's culture and just the way that things are, I don't know. Like if I faked an alien thing as a kid, and it was just my imagination, and someone came back to me and was going to put me in a documentary talking about it again,
probably feel like a shithead.
I'd be like, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and they'd edit that part out so fast, and it would never exist.
Right.
So I don't know, man.
But
I don't know. I like to believe that what they're saying is true, but I do agree, even if it is true, could be infused with an environmental
agenda,
yeah. But I'm also open to the possibility that it's 100% fake. I just can't wrap my head around how they would fake it, past the interview portion. I could understand. They could make kids say whatever they want. But the fact that a whole group of kids came up to another group of people and said, "We saw this! Oh my God!" So that group of people would have to be involved, and which is definitely possible.
No, we've gone about this, and we've had so many episodes where that's my argument. How could
No.
NASA...
Okay, so here's the argument, is that it was 64 kids off in the corner of the playground, right? In order for them to all decide to run up to their teachers and say, "We just saw this," they would have to have seen something. Right?
Or have planned that shit.
Or had planned that, and that's the more difficult part. I can slightly believe that 10 or a dozen teachers would be on board and say, "Yeah, we said the kids ran up and they never did." But it's way more... okay, it's still believable, but I'd say it's harder to get young kids to all agree on doing something.
What if somebody was just fucking with them? Maybe what if somebody staged the... I know it sounds horrible.
All the stories were like...
Were
dangerously accurate.
I know, but
like,
what if the alien wasn't actually an alien? What if it was actually someone staging as an alien?
Like in a
fucking,
suit?
You know? Yeah, like what if one of these fucking asshole... that sounded mean. What if their classmates was like, "Hey, I'm going to fucking dress up as an alien that I saw we could go on
but
that."
a ship too?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of variables to it that make it hard to hoax, I would say.
Yeah,
but, I mean, dude, somebody showed me a video last week, and they were 100% convinced that this was real. And, 2 seconds in, I was like, this is obviously fake, just because we do production, so we can tell based on the production style, like when something's fake as fuck, and just what's going on in the scene that something's fake.
Yep,
But it was a scene of in a high school that she was like, "Oh my God, somebody played a prank on their high school. They put laxatives in something." And literally everyone was like shitting their pants at the same time.
American Vandal?
Right, yeah. So she showed me a scene from that, and she was 100% she thought it was fucking real.
The documentary looked real, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, right off the bat, it's fake. I mean...
Oh, yeah, it's totally fake.
Yeah, but, someone could make a fucking fake video and spread it, and tons of people will think it's real.
Totally.
That easy.
Right.
But these are young kids, though. I don't know. It's harder with young kids, just because they're idiots.
I just, I don't know. I obviously it could be fake, but I lean more towards the fact that maybe this couldn't be fake. And I say that because not only, I get that kids have a vivid imagination, all that stuff, but kids, it's so hard for a child to agree with another child.
Yeah.
Especially in that school, the age that they were, there's just no way that 64 kids could go, "Okay, that means there's one kid leader who's like, this is the story, this is what we're going to say, this is how it's going to go down." And then all 64 of those kids agreed that was a good idea. There's no way.
And there were still slight discrepancies in their stories, which also lend to the fact that it's possibly true, because everyone remembers things differently, adds, distracts, from their memories. So
yeah, that is a good and a bad case. For
good and a bad thing, but we talked about before, you could show the same thing to a group of a dozen people, and you'll get slightly different. You'll get slightly different descriptions.
But that you can also fake something and not have all the pieces to it. I think that doesn't help or just help.
But this is the biggest issue that I have.
That's what you're saying. But
if people actually gave a true shit about this, which unfortunately people do not like talking about this. They think it's crazy and weird and whatever it is, and it's not. It's so much fun, and it just justifies our existence on this planet and how freaking cool it is that our own race is fucking things up so much. Why don't we talk about something else for 15 minutes? Take to social media about that stuff. Let's just talk about this stuff because it's enlightening and it's fun and it's weird, and that's what life is. Life is all of those things.
Weird?
Especially weird.
My life's real weird.
My life is crazy weird.
I thought mine was pretty normal.
Yeah, yours is weird.
Normal?
Okay.
But I'm just saying, if you really gave a shit, take these 30-year-olds, swear them into a court of law, and open this alien case. Did it happen? Whatever. Yes? Great. You all swore under oath. You're saying it happened. Fantastic. Then it happened. Great. Aliens exist. Boom.
I wonder, though, if they had to swear under oath, does that mean that they could go to jail if they were found to, if they were proven wrong? Does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
But that's I said, the same thing goes for.
Not. I don't know.
The same thing goes for Casey Anthony or O.J. Simpson. If they lie under oath, which let's be honest,
Doug, the glove didn't fit, player.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Wet leather shrinks.
I gotta stand by our justice system until it does me wrong, I guess.
Wet leather shrinks.
Maybe.
I mean, but a leather jacket in the rain.
I mean, you gonna buy not pre-shrunk gloves?
What? Pre-shrunk leather gloves?
Like, why are they not gonna? Oh, you're talking about like an old ass glove that's like dried up and shit.
Yeah, because like I had a leather jacket once and I wore it in the rain, and that shit when I got inside it felt snug and it was like real leather.
Weird.
Yeah.
Shitty.
Yeah. So anyway, but I'm just saying, like, to Johnny's point, long story short, if we're applying what we apply to our justice system to these kids who were interviewed, regardless of whether they were probed or not, to answer the questions the way that this interview wants them to, the whole point of a legal process and proceeding is to probe someone with the questions that you want answered the way you want them to.
Huh.
That's the same thing.
That's exactly it, yeah.
So
that's
it's
what
like,
a prosecutor does.
Yeah, why are we dismissing this thing? A prosecutor and an interviewer, the interviewer, sure, wants a great story to tell. The prosecutor wants to make sure their client is defended.
Prosecuted. They gotta take that motherfucker down.
Yeah. So it's just, it all comes to that. And that's am I saying that I truly believe this happened? I'm not saying I believe that it happened. I like to dig deep and figure out how plausible is it, where the false details are, why they could be false, and assess it from there. But I want to see this documentary. That's what I want.
It looks like it's gonna be a good documentary. I definitely want to watch it. Somebody fucking give him $95,000. Let's do it.
Tay, do you think it happened?
I am on board with that it did happen. I think that based on what I've found, that the kids experienced that and that the interviews were probably legitimate. And I don't know, part of me is like, God, there seems to be an environmental agenda, but possibly the aliens have an environmental agenda and possibly this is real. People have been telling us that we're fucking the place up the whole time. We know how much garbage we create, and we know that it's inevitable that we have to stop that. So, I don't know. It's not so far-fetched to me. What do you think, Johnny?
Well, I just thought of something again. Why, in my opinion, if aliens existed, why would they not want us to fucking kill ourselves? Like, and get us, like, off this planet, you know?
We talked about this last week.
Yeah, it's hard to know what they are. Maybe they are us. Maybe they're a time-jumped version of us. Maybe they're way in the fucking future, and they're coming back, and they're like, for us to exist, you will have made these changes, and we're just making sure you make these changes. I don't know.
Well, anyways, I would say I'm on the fence about it. I'm not positive. I need to definitely look at the research. I can't say I'm 100% against it or for it. It's either pieces that make me want to lead one way or the other.
One thing I do want to point out about the episode is that it did circle back. We talked about how beautiful these rare pieces of our environment were, these trees that are like, they only grow in this one area. It's amazing how beautiful they are. And it came back to environmentalist problems. So it connected, guys. It connected.
Beautiful. I want to say right now, I want to have a highbrow car wash to raise $95,000 for director Randall Nickerson to finish the production of Ariel Phenomenon. Under one circumstance. That we get to watch it first.
Ooh.
So Randall Nickerson, this is for you. We want to have a highbrow car wash. No shirts, no shoes, no service. And we're going to try to raise $95,000 as long as we can see the documentary first.
No shirts, no shoes, no service. Isn't that the fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like no shirts, no shirt.
Well, we're not going to wear shirts or shoes.
I'll just go naked.
No, that's...
I'll wear cloth.
We'll have to pay $95,000 for that, Johnny.
Let him experience his nudity dreams.
All the money we raised went to fines.
Yep. Sorry,
totally
Ariel Phenomenon.
worth it.
But, no, for real, though. Guys, you can go on arielphenomenon.com. That's Ariel, like Little Mermaid, Ariel. I believe that's how you spell the name. And you could donate some money to bring this documentary to life. There's some awesome people involved. The supervising editor, Christopher Seward, is known for some amazing things. He edited Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, and he won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival. And he also won Best Documentary Editor for Michael Moore's Sicko, which is also fantastic. So arielphenomenon.com. You guys can contribute today, which is freaking fantastic. Shoot, you guys, Saturday is National Coffee Day.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. It's,
Or 2 days ago.
It's tomorrow for us or 2 days ago for you guys. Guys, I hope you enjoyed your National Coffee Day. I hope you enjoy your National Coffee Day, and make sure that you're drinking Death Wish coffee, the only coffee that matters.
Yeah, I drank it today. I just want to shout out quickly. I've noticed multiple times I've had this Death Wish like travel mug. Every single time I put hot liquid in this thing, hot liquid. Like I feel like a day later, it's hotter than it fucking was.
Hotter liquid.
I'm not saying that's because I'm not saying it because of one of our sponsors. I legitimately went to a concert yesterday with Nick. I got back in the car after the concert and was like, "Do we go to a concert? Because this freaking coffee raised in
hot
temperature."
liquid.
Well, that makes
Anyways.
sense. I mean, if you're in Georgia, it'd probably be like double the heat if you left it in a car.
No, it was nighttime.
It was. The sun was down. The sun was down.
Okay, that makes sense.
You got a hypothetical you want us to talk about, or a thought you'd like to share about today's episode, or even a correction for something that we might have messed up. Great news, our email is still functioning. We still have it. We haven't been kicked off of Gmail yet. That's hybrothoughts@gmail.com. That's hybrothoughts@gmail.com. Your hypothetical will or could be featured on next week's episode. It's happened multiple times before with some of our incredible listeners, and it could be you. Also, make sure to head over to the Facebooks and give us a like at facebook.com/hybrothetical thinking for more content throughout the week. And go over to Instagram at Hybrothetical Thinking. We have a contest running right now, a giveaway, if you will, where you guys can win a Hybro prize pack. That's some Death Wish whole bean coffee, a Hybrothetical t-shirt in your size, a Hybrothetical pin, and a Future Monsters patch.
Hybro prize back.
Which is freaking sweet. And all you guys got to do is you just have to like, share, and follow us on both Instagram or Facebook, depending on which one you want to go on. And you get entered in, and the contest will run probably for another week or so. We're going to keep it going. We like making the odds
forever in your favor.
Forever. I mean, I guess your favor.
And guys,
I don't know.
can you do me a favor and let's all work together. Let's get on the Reddit boards. Let's do whatever the fuck it takes to find out who gave us this 1-star review. And let's fucking hate mail this piece of shit as much as we can, okay? I want to find this dude. I want to find this person.
I will find you.
It was my mom.
What? Your mom's the nicest person.
I don't think she would do that.
No, she doesn't have in her heart of hearts.
I got to read this review, man. Guys, we got to
just
band
a star.
together and put as many 5-star reviews on there as we can. Give us some verbal acknowledgement that you don't hate us. I need it. I need it to sleep at night.
Listen, whoever I need it. I gotta have it. Whoever gave us the 1-star review, we're gonna keep this up. God, if you really feel like it's a 1-star, just shoot us a message on Facebook or an email and let us know why you don't like us, because your feedback helps us grow. And that's what we want to do. We want to constantly grow, and we want to change ourselves for a better world, for a better podcast.
Tight.
With that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening this week. This is a fun one, provided to us by the great, Taylorius, Nelsonian, Maximus.
Okay, guys, we got to end in the next 30 seconds. If we do, first number is 1, second number is 1, third number will be 8. That's 28. We've got to end in less than 20 seconds now. Let's do it.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I have been your host, Nick.
All right, wait. We got to make it go all the way to 118. I'm sorry. All right, so let's carry this on. We got 15 more seconds. 15 more seconds until synchronicity, okay? But I've been Taylor.
I've been Johnny.
Wait
Tell me when to stop. I've been Johnny.
I've
been Johnny.
It's over! But we had some intro time in there, so just to clarify, our recording time is 118, so it really happened. We don't need to prove it to you.
Yep, 2 + 2 is 1. 28.